Welcome to the Defence Property Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things property investing and real estate for Australian Defence Force personnel. Whether you're looking to build and scale a property portfolio or relocating across Australia, we've got the insights and tips for less stress and more success. Let's dive in.
And welcome back to the Defence Property Podcast. Kane Drury from Discover Buyers Agency, your Defence Property Podcast host. And today I'm sitting here with Zach Plath from VetComp. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kane. Appreciate you having me on.
No worries at all. So you're ex-Defence now. You run a successful business in the veteran compensation, which we'll touch on shortly. But tell us, where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up around Brisbane,
Yep.
Both north and south.
Yep.
And my defence journey started when I was around 18 years old. So I finished high school, a little bit unsure of exactly what pathway I wanted to take in life. Rather than sort of committing to a 4-year degree or anything of that nature, I suppose I committed to a 4-year term in defence, right?
Yep.
So that was definitely a lot of fun. I learned a lot in that process, certainly don't regret it. And obviously it's led into what I do now. So ultimately a full circle moment.
Oh, lovely. Well, back when I joined when I was 18, had no real direction, and I probably wasn't really degree material, so that wasn't really an option for me. But, I joined Defence and found property and landed on my feet okay. So you joined and you went infantry?
Yeah, correct.
Cool.
So I stayed a little bit past my Rosso.
Yep.
Ultimately, it was a really good experience.
Yep.
Got to do a handful of cool shit, probably, half as cool as they make it out on the ads, but still a decent amount of cool stuff to do.
Yeah, cool. So what unit, where'd you get posted to?
Yeah, so after my training at Singleton, I got posted to 8-9 RER, so just located in Brisbane. So honestly, couldn't complain about the posting. Grew up in the Brisbane region, got posted to Brisbane. Certainly better than a Darwin or probably a Townsville posting, I'd say.
Yeah. There's not many people that grew up in Brisbane that aren't happy to get posted back there when they join.
Yeah, definitely.
There's plenty of unhappy ones that end up in Darwin and Townsville, I guess, but, they're horses for courses, as they say. No, so what year, roughly, when did you get out?
I think I got out, it was post-COVID, because I remember during the COVID period, that was a whole write-off. So there was like 6 months where everybody was working from home and, working from home as a grunt, what does that really entail? Probably doing a few push-ups in your room and playing some Call of Duty. I remember that's what I was doing at the time at least.
Sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it was, come to think of it, right? I think I got out in the back end of 23.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And when you got out, was there a plan, or you just got out, had enough and wanted to try something different?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say there was a clear path or a plan at the time. I was sort of tossing up some avenues through tertiary education, whether that was to go to uni or do a TAFE course. I found myself in the veteran advocacy space. At the time, one of my passions was business. Okay. And I was sort of under the disillusion that, maybe running your own business, you'd have all this free time.
And lifestyle,
Well, obviously, as you know, and if any other business owners are listening, it's not normally the case. So I found myself in veteran advocacy. At the time of separation, I didn't really have a clear plan, but I knew that I definitely wanted to stay connected to the veteran ecosystem in some capacity. And fortunately enough, we've been able to do that.
Yeah. So did you get out in the veteran advocacy space working with someone else first and then start VetComp, or did you go straight into VetComp?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because the thing with veteran advocacy, at least currently at the time of this recording, is frankly, anybody can set up shop, put a shingle out the front and say, hi, come to me, I'll do your DVA claims, which is obviously problematic, right?
Yeah.
How Tyson and I got into the veteran ecosystem in terms of compensation, and for those listening, Tyson is my business partner who also runs VetComp. We actually engaged a member of the DVA. So a DVA delegate who we engaged with. Fortunately enough, they were obviously very well versed in all the policy, all the legislation, which Tyson and I at the time were not. But we understood the veteran component of the claims process and sort of combining that policy and processing component from the DVA delegate who we hired at the time, coupled with our experience as veterans and our interest in running a business, I think we've been able to do okay.
Yeah, okay, cool. So for, the junior soldier, sailor, airman that's listening, and also potentially the senior NCO and stuff, just give us a snapshot of, there's you and Tyson running VetComp. Who are VetComp? What do you do? And And what does the everyday client look like in the client journey, I guess?
Yeah, sure. Look, we've developed significantly in the past few years.
Yep.
So we've been operational for coming up to 4 years now, and we've grown exponentially. So that's really good. We've been able to help a lot of people. At the start, it was really just Tyson and I, and we were getting some consulting and some feedback from this DVA staff member who was at the time not working with DVA when we were employing them.
Yep.
And we were just working from home, or we'd work from a cafe. Between us, we had maybe 50 clients. And then over the 2, 3, 4-ish years it's been now, we've scaled to around 1,500 clients who are actively managing. And in addition to that, we onboarded a whole heap of staff. So we've got dedicated advocates. Their backgrounds range from legal industry to well-being space, such as psychology, some of which have a combination of both. And then we also have staff and team members who conduct our administrative component, ease up that burden for the advocate so they can do more client-facing matters. And then we've recently, actually, an interesting hire, we've brought in a in-house marketing manager to take care of all of our messaging, which we're putting out.
Yeah, it's a full-time job for sure, the marketing. Obviously, we're sitting here for my business on a podcast, and we do so much. So, there's definitely that, justification these days for a full-time marketing person.
I definitely think so. We were paying a lot of money to engage a digital marketing agency.
Yep.
And we sort of did that assessment, and we're like, okay, we probably are better off bringing someone in-house, feeding them all the information, all the knowledge as well, because that's important when it comes to the messaging itself. You need to understand your demographic. You need to understand your audience.
Yep.
And look, the marketing agencies, they were charging too much, and they didn't understand our audience either.
Yeah. So of VetComp, how many are current serving and veterans of the business?
Yeah, this normally surprises people. So a lot of veterans in particular, and myself at the time when I was serving, DVA claims are generally something which people think that they need to wait to submit, or at least until they've discharged.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of this is reinforced by sometimes senior members of chain of command, or maybe it's just your peers who have been misinformed. It's quite frankly bad advice. So there's 2 reasons why it's bad advice. The first of which is your compensation is actually age adjusted. So what that means, the longer you wait, the less you get.
Yep.
Second of which, the DVA claims process is, in order to get a claim approved, there's an evidentiary burden. So evidence needs to be supplied in order for the claim to actually be accepted.
Yep.
Now, if you've waited 10, 15 years, sometimes gathering that information is harder to find. Maybe it doesn't exist now at the time. So it makes claiming harder. So
I mean, most people do their tax return every year and they struggle to find all their paperwork. It's just what they're, imagine doing a tax return 15 years later. I can only imagine, it would be looking for a needle in a haystack to find all the evidence and, supporting documents you need. So I'd imagine, if you've sustained, like I had a knee reconstruction and a few years later an orthoscopy while I was serving and stuff. If I had to go, gather all the paperwork 15 years later, I can imagine that would be a pretty painful process. So definitely makes sense to, get onto your claims, while serving. And to what else? So I guess you come across the veterans as well as the current serving?
Yeah, so probably the majority of our client base, it's close. It's almost 50-50, whether they're serving or they're discharged.
Yep.
But our particular demographic probably leans slightly more to current serving members. So in which case it's been fantastic to be able to sort of break some of those stigmas and step guys through the process who they've been misinformed or they've been told wrong information. You should delay, you shouldn't claim right now, but actually breaking through that, making sure they get the compensation which they're entitled to, rather than waiting 10, 15 years. Like you mentioned, it's hard to gather the evidence, but in addition to that, like I said earlier, the compensation's age adjusted. So if you wait, you'll get less.
What about I'd imagine there'd be some, young soldier airmen listening and that might be hesitant to put claims in because they might think, does it impact their career or like med class and things like that? How does that, because I'd imagine that would be a fairly common reason that people would hold back on submitting claims.
Yeah, and it's a very common question. We encourage all of the veterans who we engage and who we support to make the Med Centre aware of any conditions or impairments which you may be dealing with, okay? The Med Centre as well has their capacity for testing, okay? And typically when clients engage us at the time of engagement, the conditions already exist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not that people are engaging us and then conditions are appearing.
Yeah.
It's that this condition has been present for however long.
Yeah.
The medical center has the capacity and the resources to test suitability and readiness in terms of deployability.
Yeah.
And we always tell our clients, look, if there's any findings in here which are not clear to your health center, we encourage you to disclose it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with that in mind, we've supported numerous veterans and we've been able to help them through the claims process. Many of them go on to continue to serve as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not always just it's not the beginning of the med separation path. It's just
It's generally not, no.
recording what's already occurred through whether that's service overseas, outfield, PT, everyday life and stuff through defence.
Certainly. And probably as you can understand as well, the stigma within defence, when you're injured, generally people don't want to report it, right?
Yeah.
So being able to engage that support for the purposes of compensation or recognition of a condition which in future you'll be able to get treatment for, being able to do that externally, I think a lot of veterans find some comfort in that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And at the end of the day, I mean, I love my time in defence. I love the business that I run, working closely with defence. But when you discharge and you move on to whatever you're going to do, whether you've served for 6 years, 20 years or 30, unfortunately, the defence will continue to operate and move on without you. And, you know, your injuries are there forever. Like I have a back injury and it reminds me of it every day. You know, so yeah, I would say the stigma that, like, I've spoken to a few people as like clients of ours, and I often ask, have you gone through your claims process, especially the longer you've served. I think it's easy to assume that, you know, you're going to sustain, you know, if someone's done 20, 30 years service, it's you generally don't get through that amount of service without, you know, some knees and back injuries, you know. And I've been met with, oh, no, fuck that. I'm not going down doing that. But ultimately, they will forget who you are once you separate, and the defence will continue to serve the country and continue on. But your back injury or whatever it is, mine reminds me every day. So I'd definitely say, you know, it's not an entitlement. I don't know what the correct word is, but if you've got the injuries and that, you're silly not to go through the process.
Yeah, I would generally agree. I think to your point about, you know, people serving 20 to 30 years, it'd be an anomaly if they
100%
didn't have a condition, right? Now, whether that's related to service or not, I mean, during 20 to 30 years, probably, okay? But our job is to make sure that we present that case to defence, DVA, and we use as much supporting information as possible to demonstrate how there's a link between the service and the condition. Yeah,
cool. You know, so I get 1,500 veterans on the book at the moment, or just total, or is that
currently who we're servicing?
Yeah, okay. So there's probably some that you've serviced that have moved on that, but I guess you would see quite a few determinations in the veterans' favour and stuff. And being a defence property podcast, talk to it like what are the average payouts, or what are some of the veterans seeing, and what are they? I guess more to my interest than that. What are they doing with their compensation? They're not all going to live in Bali, are they?
No, but as you're aware, some definitely do, right?
Yeah.
Look, in terms of average payouts, we can totally get into that in terms of what our team is doing.
Oh, it doesn't have to be specific to, you know, just ballpark.
Yeah, okay.
Very broad.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
I'm more interested in like what they're going, and are they spending it on property, hopefully?
Yeah.
Or are they spending it on blue utes and
casino.
Teslas or casinos or you know, trips to Bali and building Instagram accounts?
Yeah. Look, there's definitely, I think, a bit of that.
Yep.
We do our best to remain engaged and at least in close proximity with the client post the determination.
Yep.
If there's ever a DVA question, if there's ever an entitlement question after the claims process, they can always come back. What we see is normally, let's be honest, right? It's normally the most money which they've ever come across.
Yep.
And it's also a tax-free payment.
Yep.
Now, the DVA is good in the sense that there are certain circumstances in which they can engage a financial advisor after the determination. Limitations with the financial advisors is they're pretty restricted in what they can say in relation to property.
Yeah.
which here in Australia is a huge asset class, right?
Yeah.
So from what we've seen, most of the veterans are pretty responsible. We always encourage that they seek financial advice.
Yep.
I would say I don't think we've had anybody yet, or at least I'm not aware of any client which we've supported and they've got the lump sum and they've completely blown it. So I think that's reassuring.
Positive,
Yeah, that's definitely a positive.
But there's this, not everyone is entitled to free financial advice, are they? Like you have to get over a certain threshold.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's to be assessed at 50 PI points or higher.
Okay, so which would support like 50 points is probably a bigger payout, hence why it's important to get advice.
Yeah.
Not that getting less than 50 points or a smaller payout is any, you could argue it's more important, but why that's beyond me, I guess, why some are and some aren't entitled to free advice. But cool. So pretty responsible across the board, of what they're doing.
From what we've seen.
Yeah.
So they'll typically have the consult with an advisor if they wish to do that, if they're eligible.
Yep.
And we're connected within the veteran ecosystem to make sure that they can access supports. Now, this could be things such as household services.
Yep.
This could be things such as perhaps it's support with an incapacity payment. Like I said, after the engagement window with the client and the determination has been delivered, if they need support or a recommendation of who we think they should reach out to for a particular matter, we can provide that if it's outside of our scope.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, it's much like us, like any of our clients know that once a property settles, we're still there, 3, 6, 12 months, like they've got their property manager looking after it or them posting away from that property, where we continually there for support to help people through that. We met at a veteran networking event probably 12 months ago or so. I know people that are ex-Navy, that are mortgage brokers. There's a lot of defence businesses out there. So, I think that I'm a really big advocate for the post. I mean, for us, it's post-settlement, post-determination support that you provide.
Yeah. I think you definitely owe it to them, right?
Yeah.
And like I said before, even if it's outside of your scope, the veteran ecosystem and veteran business network is pretty well intertwined. So normally, if Kane can't fix your problem or I can't fix your problem, we will generally know somebody who could.
Yeah, I mean, I know accountants that are ex-defence, financial planners that are ex-defence. The veteran business community is quite large, out there, and we're always meeting new businesses that are ex-defence. Property-wise, Zach, tell us, I guess, do you want to share some experiences yourself with property, and we'll just segue into some clients along the way? Or
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm more than happy to speak on that. So for the longest time, Kane, I was so against property.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, here we go, right? So I bought into the whole dollar cost averaging S&P 500 thing, right?
Yep.
That was up until I understood leverage.
Yep.
So as soon as that light bulb moment occurred when, we can loan against this asset and use that leverage, property started to make sense to me.
So how long ago was this roughly?
Actually quite recently.
Yeah, right.
So I only acquired my first property probably no longer than 10 months ago.
Okay.
So pretty recent. And I engaged a buyer's agent.
Let's keep going.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. Where do you want me to go back to?
No, that's right. If anyone didn't pick up on the awkwardness there, it wasn't me that represented Zach. He used a buyer's agent, but Zach's now on board with us.
Yeah, that's all right. I got my first property around 10 months ago.
Yep.
I didn't even see the property.
Yep.
Okay. So, and that's one of the benefits of using a buyer's agent, is they will source you to property, they'll find it for you, they'll run all the numbers, they're the expert, you're not. And that's how I viewed it, okay? Yep. That property has gone up around 15, 16% already in that 10-month window. And I've just actually acquired another one as well. So I'm quite new to property.
Yep.
I was heavily indexed on dollar cost averaging, index funds, cryptocurrency as well, but being sensible without things such as Bitcoin. I think meme coins or things like that, you might be wasting your time.
A little bit dangerous there.
Yeah, I wouldn't endorse anybody to put their full payout into a meme coin. I think that's probably ludicrous, right? Yeah.
Well, we actually had, for anyone listening, I don't know the exact date of release of this episode, but last week, so recording as of today, last week was our Bitcoin versus property episode, and we had Chris Tipper, who's the chief economist at the ANZ Group in Brisbane, who are Queensland's oldest, gold and silver exchange. But also one of the first ones to start offering cryptocurrency between precious metal, cryptocurrency, and fiat currency or cash. But dollar cost averaging, still doing it.
Yeah. Probably a little bit more modest of my approach. Like I've allocated some capital towards putting down deposits for more properties. But I think there's definitely some truth in it, right? And the access to liquidity as well. I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my personal views are along the lines that, the fiat currency currently debases or loses purchasing power to the tune of 7% a year and stuff. So if you're, whatever liquid asset you're putting it in is only achieving 7, you're probably only storing your wealth. You're not actually building it. Whereas the leverage with the property is what allows us to leverage up our wealth. But it comes with its own nuances of, managing a tenant, managing a loan and a cash flow and things like that. So,
and that's one thing which I thought would be a nightmare is actually dealing with the tenants, ensuring that they're not, tearing down the walls, things of that nature, right? The property managers managed all of that for me as well. So that eased that concern. It eased the concern of I need to go find the property. It eased the concern of, trying to find tenants, everything like that. It was covered. It was honestly almost as easy as buying a stock online.
Yeah, 100%. And most people would buy a stock online and they wouldn't look at a PE ratio. They wouldn't look at a turnover revenue and that. They would just look at a brand and am I familiar with it? So a property can be purchased, in Perth in a very similar fashion. So what about for the typical client of VetComp? How many do you see that sort of progress down that property path versus?
I wouldn't be able to tell you with too much detail because the follow-up process after the claims process, it's normally on the onus is on the client, right? So if the client needs support, they can reach out to us. We're always there. It's not too often which we will reach out directly to them. But in saying that, there's definitely a few clients who keep us informed and who keep us in the loop. And like I said before, I think most of them are pretty reasonable and pretty responsible with it, which is great because it's a life-changing amount of compensation. And to not be responsible with it, quite problematic.
Yeah. And you're not going to get the opportunity again if you, whether someone's coming across 50, 150, 300 or whatever thousand and that, it's unlikely that unless you're, win the lotto or something like that, you're not coming across a large amount of money like that, unless you've earned it. Like quite commonly, someone that's owned a property for 5, 10, 15 years is definitely going to come across it, but they've earned it and they've strategized to build that position to get a lump sum that's going to kickstart some form of investment portfolio, whatever path you choose. It's unlikely they'll come across it again.
Agreed. And the DVA compensation process or the permanent impairment process, which it's normally referred to as, the lump sum component, that's people tend to fixate on that. There's a whole host of benefits beyond the lump sum compensation. And one thing which is worth mentioning is that the client can actually elect for a essentially ongoing payments in favor of a lump sum option. That's something which the client can decide to do as well. But outside of the actual remuneration, or not remuneration, but the compensation, things such as the DVA Gold Card. So that's obviously free medical and dental, which is clinically necessary for the claimant's rest of their life. In addition to that, which a lot of guys are not aware of, is speak to your accountant about it, but they're normally exempt from the Medicare surcharge, the Medicare levy.
Yeah, okay, which is 1.5%, isn't it?
Yeah, 1.5 or 2 or something like that right now.
Which is quite a bit every tax return.
Yeah, and especially if they start making some money, right? So if they start doing well in property, that's going to push them up to the higher rates. So 2% is a lot on a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. What else is out there? Because I'm quite interested in this as a good opportunity to, educate the audience about, because like of the conversations I have, everyone is fixated on, it's just a lump sum. I've bugged my knee, I've bugged my back, whatever has happened while I've been serving, I've got a lump sum and off I go. But what else is out there? So the gold card covers just their injuries?
Clinically necessary treatment.
Okay.
So the gold card, the example I tend to give to veterans is if you've been assessed at 60 PI points or higher, you'll be eligible for a DVA gold card under the Merkel legislation.
Yep.
Now, let's say you're out on the town, you jump on a Lime scooter, You had too many drinks and you stack it, okay? Look, probably not related to defense.
Yeah.
But the gold card will cover you in that circumstance, assuming that there is clinically necessary treatment. So if you needed to have surgery or if you needed to have some particular procedure done as a result of the incident, which was not related to service, the gold card would cover that.
Yeah, okay. So when you say clinically required treatment, it's pretty much if a doctor prescribes it sort of thing, like you can't use this to go get massages at Westfield and you can't use it to, buy your favourite pillow that helps you stop snoring or whatever. It's
Normally not.
generally doctor prescribed.
Correct, yeah. So
medical.
it would be the onus there is on the healthcare provider to justify as to why it's clinically necessary.
Yep.
And look, a lot of the times, like you brought up massages, for instance, okay? Physiotherapists can do sports and remedial massages in some instances as well. So the gold card has some pretty interesting use cases.
Yeah. I mean, I've asked the physio because I do get regular physio here and there depending on when my back or knees flare up and stuff. And I've always asked for a massage, but they're like, it's not really physio, they want it. A physio
and
wants to do
that's where it comes down to the, I suppose, clinical scope and their justification.
Yeah.
So dependent to the provider.
But 60 points is a fair bit. So anyone that doesn't hit that threshold, that doesn't get the gold card, there's still the white card available to anyone that sustained injuries that defence have accepted liability for. So the white card covers.
Yes. So the white card, there's something internal to the white card called non-liability healthcare.
Yep.
Okay. Specifically non-liability mental health care coverage. So mental health consultations or mental health treatment will be covered through the white card without an approved condition.
Perfect.
So that's awesome. So if you have a white card and you have no approved conditions and you're seeking support for mental health, the provider can bill that white card.
And pretty much, like, just to clarify, anyone that served, their minimum ROSO and they discharge, they get a white card with mental health covered. And so anyone that's out there that's listening that served, you can get mental health counselling under your white card.
Correct.
If you just did minimum service on your ROSO, which I think personally that's amazing. And I think that's a really good initiative from, is it the Defence
and
Government?
DVA, right? Yeah. And one point to that is if you've done 1 day of full-time service, you'll be eligible for that white card as well.
Yeah, okay.
So, for instance, if you sign on for a 4-year service obligation, and you, for whatever reason, medically separate or administratively separate year 1, you'll still be eligible for that white card. And there are some circumstances in which reservists can actually be eligible for the white card as well.
Yeah, okay, cool. But just to clarify, it is the only mental health is the only condition that's accepted without liability. Like obviously if you have a knee reconstruction while you're serving, you would put your claim in, it would come out and you don't get your threshold of whatever 60 points for the gold, you'll get your white card. Your knee's obviously covered, but mental health's generally the only one that's accepted without claim.
Liability. Yeah. So the non-liability healthcare coverage, it will cover mental health support and treatment. There are a few other areas for non-liability healthcare coverage, one of which tuberculosis, I believe, from memory, and a couple other sort of stray, unusual conditions, which Defence will cover with that, DVA will cover with that white card. And with the approved conditions, so if you're not assessed at 60 PI points or higher, you'll have a white card. But if you still have approved conditions, they'll be listed against that white card. Yeah. And again, any clinically necessary treatment for that condition will be covered by the department.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Sweet. And so I guess, for the people that are listening that are, what's some tips you would give to, say the current serving member, either that's got injuries that hasn't gone through the process? Give us a handful of top tips.
Perfect. Glad you asked, because when the clients engage us, a lot of the time things haven't been reported, and that's probably one of the biggest things. Yeah. So while you're serving, report any injury, condition, and or event. Yeah. Okay. If there's no record of it, it's going to be a really hard time to get that condition approved. Okay, because we need 3 things here to claim across the line. The first of which is a clinical diagnosis. Yep. Okay. The second of which is something called a DVA SOP factor. So it's really a legislative instrument which can qualify the claim to be approved. So an example of this would be tinnitus. Okay. One of the SOP factors for tinnitus is exposure to 140 decibels or higher. Okay. Yep. And the third thing is actually a link to service. Okay. So how did defence cause the condition? Is there actually a condition and is it confirmed? And does it meet an SOP factor, which is really just DVA's or the RMA's legislation?
Yeah, okay, cool. What else for the current serving member? Like, so make sure that when we've got our claim or got our injury, don't sit on it.
Mm-hmm.
Put your claim in. Where does someone go? Like, obviously VetComp, and we'll put your details out there for anyone that's listening. But for someone that has sustained an injury, legitimate injury, they're a couple of weeks sort of leave, recovery. Where do they go and what do they do when Because I'd imagine for a lot of the junior soldiers, LM, and they wouldn't know where to start with this type of journey.
Specifically with the claims process or who to report it to in the first place?
Yeah, both.
Yeah,
like probably reporting to make sure that it's covered, but then how do they put that DVA claim through?
Yeah, sure. So any veteran can lodge a claim and the department has the onus to investigate that claim first of all.
Yeah.
Now, the merit of that claim, generally speaking, the department is leaning towards completed claims. Now, what that means is at the time of submission, we really want to be able to determine those three things which I was just speaking about before.
Yeah, okay.
What is the condition? Okay, we confirm that via a clinical diagnosis. Does it meet an SOP factor? Okay, that's for the department to determine. The third thing as well is how is it actually related to defence?
Yeah.
So consideration to those three things when drafting the claim. The claim submission process itself technically is an administrative process, so it's not overly burdensome. I know that there's some older veterans who struggle to go and log on to their MyService account. You normally have to link it with your MyGov account. It can be a bit of a fuck around.
Yeah.
So there's some barriers there. It's not submitting the claim what's hard. It's submitting the claim with the right information, which is hard.
Yeah. And what about for, maybe the veteran community that listens along, they've separated 2, 5, 10 years ago. Like, what's their pathway through this? Like, when they've got injuries from defence-related service, but they've been out. Like, people often ask me about, can I still get DOAS or HPAS? It's very common that people that have separated, they got out because a job opportunity landed in front of them, or they pulled the pin because they just had enough. But they've got legitimate injuries from their service. What's their pathway?
Yeah. I would recommend speaking especially so with an advocate if you've separated and it's been 10, 15, maybe 20 years, however long. The reason I recommend that is because there are certain onset windows for certain conditions.
Yep.
So for instance, a condition such as lumbar spondylosis, according to the SOPs, which is created by the RMA, which DVA use, the onset must occur within a 25-year window of whatever the event was.
Yeah, okay.
So if somebody's been out for 30 years, and there's no onset confirmed, and we send them out to get a scan, it's hard to determine when that onset actually occurred.
I mean, I'm not a doctor, but it sounds logical.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that comes back to my earlier point. Make sure you're reporting things.
Yeah.
So if, for instance, that veteran who we're talking about here, who's separated 30 years ago, if at the time when they noticed the condition, when they noticed the injury, they reported those symptoms and there was an investigation done, or at least just something mentioned on the medical records, that's going to help the claim.
Yeah. So does the veteran that's been out 5, 10, 15 years, do they need to be having a copy of their own medical file at home?
It can help. Okay. It definitely can help.
Yep.
It is a bit of a pain in the ass to actually recover that document. Yep. And depending on their service history and when they served, a lot of those documents are incomplete.
Yeah.
So we run into problems all the time there.
Yep.
But a good first action is generally get the medical records. Claims can always be submitted and then supplementary evidence can always be supplied. So in some instances, it's actually in the client's interest to start the claim with, perhaps minimal evidence, and then we get the medical records and then we look through and we go, okay, now we can add this supplementary evidence. And the benefit of that is we actually start the clock at DVA.
Yeah.
So the claim will begin to progress while we're waiting on the medical records to come. We only do that in certain situations where we're pretty confident that something's going to be on these medical records because, like I said to my earlier point, DVA are definitely in favour of completed claims.
Yeah. So pretty much you've discharged today, and then the sooner you get on this, the better, because it's like coming back to that tax return comment at the start. Like the sooner you get on it, the easier it's going to be to to gather all your medical file and documents and
Certainly.
the longer you leave it, it's not like wine. It's not going to get better or easier or anything like that. Just
no,
get
it's like
it.
milk.
It is. Can be quite painful. No one loves paperwork.
Right.
So yeah, get onto it. You mentioned timeframes. Like, what are you seeing at the moment for? Obviously, this is quite big in chat forums and stuff. I'm hearing 6 months to 6 years and everything in between. Like, what can people typically expect?
DVA actually uploads their processing times.
Okay.
So for initial liability and permanent impairment combined, so initial liability is essentially the department saying, okay, we've caused the condition.
Yep.
And then permanent impairment is saying, okay, we acknowledge that we've caused the condition. What is the impairment? In which case we will then correlate that with something called the GARP, and that will essentially spit out a compensation figure and a PI points. So I believe off the top of my head, those two combined timeframes is around 550 days on average, which is a long time.
18 to 2 years, 18 months, 2 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the trend, which we're seeing from the department, is those timeframes are continuing to blow out.
Yeah.
So one thing I'll say as well, it's a very dangerous game when veterans start running comparisons against one another, because there's some circumstances in which, one client might get more, which you're not privy to those circumstances or conditions. Another circumstance might be the client is eligible for priority processing, which means they're actually going to go through the queue quicker. So sometimes clients ring us and they say, my friend, he engaged you after I engaged you and he's now done.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the client who rings us telling us about, they're normally not aware that the client who actually processed faster had special considerations for priority processing, whether that's a terminal illness, a medical separation, financial hardship, things like that. We can actually present that to the
I
department.
imagine it's a pretty difficult conversation when that veteran calls you, because you'd have client confidentiality where you couldn't just say, well, old mate's got terminal illness. Of course, they're going to process him quicker.
Yeah.
But that's probably handy to know. How are they going? Like just on their 500, what was it? 500 and
about 550.
How are they going meeting that at the moment?
Well,
is that fairly typical, and is that what someone can expect, or is it one of the cases where they say it's 18 months, but it's really 3 years?
It does vary. So those average time frames, that's the current average.
Yeah.
And if we reflect and we look at the previous averages which have been published, that average continues to increase.
Yeah, okay.
So if somebody puts a claim in today, well, is that average going to apply for them?
Yeah.
Or if we're looking at the trend and it's increasing, could they expect a longer time?
Coming back to our dollar costing average with S&P and stuff, it's a moving average is increasing. If the trend is going from low to high, you'd expect, what it is today is not going to be when you see it eventuate. So it's probably a good thing not a good thing, but don't expect that this is going to be a fast journey.
It's not a fast process.
Don't spend it before you receive anything.
Mm-hmm. I would say we do a very good job of managing our clients' expectations.
Yeah.
Obviously, when they engage us, there's no guarantees. We obviously want to get the claim approved because we operate on a no-win, no-fee basis. So it's in our interest as well. In terms of timeframes, if there's an advocate out there who's telling you they can do it quicker, they're probably lying. So that's probably one red flag to look out for. Yep. The only way an advocate can actually make the claims process move faster is gathering the evidence quicker, which we do, and actually supplying that evidence to DVA and corresponding with the client and any other stakeholders promptly.
Yeah.
But actually getting on the phone and telling a delegate from DVA to hurry up as an advocate, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So what are some of the red flags? I know there's quite a few different models out there from, RSL volunteers. I think, there's lawyers what are some of the red flags for someone listening that's ready to select or they've been pondering, they've probably been sitting on this for a couple of years and then hearing the tax return comment, they're like, shit, I should get on this. What are some of the red flags they should look for before engaging someone?
Yeah, probably a good place to start is doing your own research, okay? So whether you have one consultation with one advocate and then you proceed, or you have a consultation with 4 or 5 different groups and then proceeding, that's probably a wiser decision to make. Because then you have a point of reference, okay? Because if you jump on a call and you know nothing about the subject matter, even if that guy knows 10% about the subject matter, he now sounds like an expert.
Yeah.
So
well, I always say it's the same with property, isn't it? Like, you talk to one person and that becomes your source of truth. You read shitloads of books, you read lots of articles, you speak to 10 people, you gather different perspectives, different bits of information, and then all of a sudden you're educated and you can make an informed decision versus one source of information is one source of truth.
Yeah. I think now, subject to the individual circumstances, a client engagement fee at the time of engagement can be restricting for a lot of veterans, okay, particularly those who have separated and don't actually have any income support currently. And any arrangement which is not a no fee, no win arrangement, no win, no fee arrangement is probably worth considering if that option is for you as well, because what actually incentivizes that provider? Is it your outcome? Probably not. Not if they're not tied to the outcome of your claim.
Yeah. So their success is tied to your success.
Yeah, I think having that aligned incentive is pretty important. So it gives the client some reassurance. And it also motivates the provider to do a very thorough and in-depth analysis of that individual and make sure that nothing is missed.
Some pretty good advice there that, definitely echo that. Cool. And I guess I would say for, most people knowing, real estate is Australia's largest asset class and underpins all of Australia's wealth. I think it's 2 or 3 times the size of the super scheme in Australia from, as in our net worth held in real estate versus our net worth in super. And most people that I speak to, obviously I'm a buyer's agency, so they're quite keen and interested in property, but it can be like building a portfolio. Property is get rich slow, right? So building a portfolio can be a very slow process. If you can, process your claims and everything, and you're fortunate enough to get, or I don't know if fortunate is an appropriate term there, but
if you're eligible.
Yeah, if you know what I'm trying to say. If you do have a lump sum payment, that can really accelerate a property portfolio. So again, I'd encourage you to speak to, again, multiple property people if that, and get educated and learn and stuff. And it can be a life-changing lump sum, but also a life-changing property portfolio that you can build. Because property, one is get rich slow, but it's all about delayed gratification as well. You don't just buy one property or 2 or 3 today, and then all of a sudden, it's game over and you're on the beach sipping cocktails or whatnot. Buying property is get rich slow, but if you can buy and build faster off the back of a compensation payout, it can really set up your future. But it's that delayed gratification. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it, but everyone's not doing it. And it does take a lot of time and effort, but to get it right can be a huge kickstart to a portfolio.
Certainly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the compensation and the support which the department provides, it's actually not even comparable to any support comparative to any other nation.
Yeah.
So look, if you're going to be unfortunate enough to get injured or sustain a condition in a defence force or an army or a military, it's the ADF where, if you're not that you wish it upon anyone or you wish it upon yourself, but you are definitely protected comparatively.
Yep. And I think the big one here is, we can use our lump sum to build a portfolio, and, you can get into shares or do what I would caution anyone that's going to go, pay $7,000 to learn to day trade Forex markets. Like, I think those companies probably make more money selling the course and that's a major red flag. Again, I'd caution all your meme coins and stuff like that. You could potentially lose your entire compensation going down that path. It's a very volatile and risky market. But I know the financial planning is optional. Is that right?
Currently, yeah. So
I would highly encourage anyone to that's entitled to it to take it. Like get as much help as you can. Yeah. And again, speak to property people if that's your path. Speak to financial planners, and if possible, always, I guess, work within that defence community. People that have walked your life, they've lived their life 2 to 3 years at a time according to their posting order, and speak to as many people as you can to get educated and just make more informed decisions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Kane. I think that compensation, which some clients can be eligible for, it's life-changing. And what I'd want to make clear as well, there's no rush to make a decision once that hits your account.
Well, I think they say, I know we're not talking about the lotto here, but the majority of people that win the lotto are actually worse off 12, 18 or 2 years later after winning it than they were because they don't know how to manage the money.
Well, it could certainly amplify problems as well.
Yeah, 100%. And if you don't know how to manage it, it doesn't matter how much you've got, you'll lose it as quick as you come across it. So getting, quality advice can help you sort of maintain and build on that wealth, that you've just been, you've come across, I guess.
On that point, actually, the DVA is, as of July this year, they're looking at potentially mandating that advice component for at-risk or vulnerable veterans, which is a great initiative from the department.
100%. Yeah, that's good. So July this year?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, okay, cool. Any other changes coming up that might be relevant or noteworthy?
Oh, look, I think probably most people are across the consolidation of all the acts coming July. So as of July 1st, 2026, everything will be under the improved MERCA legislation, which is essentially if you've served from 2004 to now, any time in that window, you would fall under the MERCA Act, which there's an argument to say that it's probably a little bit more friendly for veterans. And as of July 1st this year, we're going to be transitioning to an improved MERCA, and that will actually apply to all veterans. Yeah,
okay. So anyone that was served pre-2004 would be under a previous act, and it's
correct.
Imagine just the time that's lapsed has made it a lot harder to put claims through.
Yeah, look, there's VEA and there's DIRCA. Again, they won't really be veterans won't be eligible to put claims in for under these acts as of the 1st of July this year. Okay. So it's something which is actually being transitioned out.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to both, but generally speaking, and for the most part, veterans will be better off under the improved MERCA. That's what the department is saying anyway.
I guess if anyone's listening and they're not sure where they fall, it's probably just reach out and have an individual. We can't really solve everyone's individual case here on a podcast episode, but if you are sort of pre or post 2004 or falling on both sides of it, just reach out to Zach and the team at VetComp if you like, and have a tailored conversation about your time frame, and it might mean that put your claims in before, or might mean waiting till after that changeover date.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent, mate. Well, as we wrap up, I think that's coming up to close on an hour. Any final thoughts to share, or bits of advice for anyone listening, from the current serving or veteran audience?
I think if there's one key takeaway from today, and if you're listening as a serving member or an ex-serving member of defence, is delaying your claims. You got to ask yourself, what is the benefit of that? Okay. Why have you not put them in yet? Is it because you think you're not eligible? Do you know you're not eligible? Okay. So I think having a chat with somebody who works in the industry, who's an advocate, who can at least point you in the right direction, give you some general advice, is a good stepping stone.
Yep.
And then from there, you can make the decision.
Yeah. Excellent. So where can people find you, Zach?
People can find us on Instagram, online at www.vetcomp.com. And I think that's really it.
Yeah. And there's just a website form that people can fill out, and that's probably the easiest way, is it? Or
yeah, correct. We've got some really cool tools on the website as well.
Yep.
So we've got a veteran DVA payment eligibility quiz. It's quite a long questionnaire. It will probably take you maybe 10 to 15 minutes. I encourage you to do it. It's a very rough approximation, and it will spit out a potential eligibility assessment. Again, none of that is binding or nor is it a guarantee, but it might give you an idea. There's also tools such as a compensation calculator, and we have a DVA handbook as well. So go access those resources. They're free. They're not going to cost you anything, and you might learn something.
Yeah, perfect. And if you want to be connected via email or anything, you can contact, most people have seen us on Instagram, jump on our website. Happy to fire off an email to introduce Zach and the team at VetComp if you can't find anything. But we'll wrap it up for today. Zach, thanks for coming on the podcast. And until next time, thanks for listening to the Defence Property Podcast. I'm Kane from Discover Buyers Agency.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Kane.